New videos every day.
Life, wisdom.
High carb, low carb, no fat, Atkins, Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, you name it. There are a lot of different diets out there, but most of these diets all revolve around one thing. That is proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and trying to shift around which percentage of these different foods we should have in our diet. And then there are some diets which seem to make the whole thing black and white, good or bad. So fats are bad or carbs are bad. But what's the answer? What should we really have in our optimal diet? I want you to start by leaving me a comment and letting me know what's the last diet that you tried, and if that diet even worked. So let me know what that diet was, or maybe you've never tried a diet, but let me know if that diet worked and which one of these diets you have tried. So carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. These are the main topics that most diets really revolve around. And we get loaded down with comments from people that ask, are carbs bad, or are fats bad, or how much protein should I eat? And there are even diets like the 80-10-10, which emphasize strict ratios of how much of these foods you should be eating. But is there an optimal ratio of these foods that we should have in our diet? And which of these diets is the most effective? Low fat or low carb? Depending on which expert you subscribe to, it's likely that you're going to get very conflicting information. Dr. Mercola, for instance, recommends that no one eat more than 15 grams of fruit sugar per day. But Durian Writer recommends eating 30 bananas a day. While Dr. Atkins recommends eating low or almost no carbohydrates, Weight Watchers will tell you that you can go crazy on carbs, but you don't want to consume any fat. And chances are, some of you have already subscribed to one of these self-proclaimed gurus. And a lot of people become very zealous and very fanatic about the diet that they are on. So how is it possible that all of these experts, many of them doctors, can have such conflicting information? So there is a lot of conflicting information and downright misinformation out there when we're talking about dieting, and I personally find it extremely confusing. So in this video, I'm going to explain some very basic principles of biochemistry that anyone could learn in a basic high school textbook on biology or on nutrition, and why so many of the experts completely ignore these basic biochemical principles is really somewhat beyond me. But I'm hoping that I can explain these concepts to you, give you some clear understanding so that you can make some sense of all of these conflicting dietary claims. So here we have carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And you should note that proteins are just chains of smaller molecules called amino acids. And for the purpose of this video, we're going to use the words protein and amino acids interchangeably. The word carbohydrate is made up of two words, carbon and hydrate. So the primary component of a carbohydrate is the molecule carbon. And carbon is really central to all of the molecules in the human body, and it's the reason that we are called carbon-based life forms. The word hydrate means to add water to. And as we all know, water is 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. So the components of carbohydrates are right there in the name: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Fats, or by their scientific name, lipids, are also composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, except this time they are configured into different patterns. By the way, you've never consumed a fat that didn't start out as a carbohydrate. You see, this whole thing starts on a plant level with a process called photosynthesis. So plants, using energy from the sun, carbon dioxide, and water, use that energy to create carbohydrates, or sugars. That's the plant's form of energy. then there are some of these sugars which are converted into fats and proteins. But for the most part of fruits and vegetables, most of the sugars in those plants remain sugar in one form or another. And then these plants are consumed by animals. And inside the animal, some of those sugars are then converted to fats and proteins. And then there are people who consume the animals. So in that way, we're consuming the energy that started out inside the sun. Cows generally have very little amounts of fat in their diet, especially a cow that's on a natural grass-fed diet. But if you've ever eaten a steak, then you know that that meat contains a lot of fat. So the point I want to make here is the fat in that meat actually started out as the carbohydrates and sugars that were in the plants that cow ate. So then a person may go to McDonald's and order a Big Mac, and they may eat that meat and it's full of fat. But the point here is that that fat started out as a carbohydrate. And that brings us to proteins, which are composed of amino acids. And I bet you can guess what amino acids are composed of. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now there are a few amino acids that additionally contain nitrogen, and there's 2 which also contain sulfur. And if you take a look at this chart, you'll see the composition of the different amino acids. And it's very clear that these amino acids are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And once more, it's important to realize that proteins also started out as carbohydrates. Because the cow doesn't eat fats and proteins, but when you sit down to eat a steak, you'll notice that it's all fats and proteins and no carbohydrates. So back to the idea of photosynthesis, where plants are using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create carbohydrates and sugars. And then the cow comes along and eats those carbohydrates. So even though the cow doesn't eat fats and proteins, the carbohydrates that it does eat are converted to fats and proteins in its body. But enough of talking about cows' bodies, let's talk about your body. Now, your body has the ability to convert any one of these nutrients into the other nutrients. So if we notice that carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are all basically composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And what this means is that each of these can be broken down and rearranged into the other. So carbohydrates, as we've already illustrated, can be turned into proteins. But proteins can also be broken down into their carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules and rearranged back into carbohydrates. Again, we already explained how carbohydrates are turned into fats. And of course, fats can also be broken down and turned back, into carbohydrates. And unless you haven't guessed it, even fats and proteins can be converted by breaking down the components and rearranging them into one another, leaving us with a triangle of the 3 major macronutrients. So if you don't have enough fat in your diet, your body can break down any excess carbohydrates or excess protein and rearrange them into fats. And if your body doesn't have enough carbohydrates, then your body can use excess fat or protein and turn it into carbohydrates. And if you understand this concept, then you'll be able to see how all the emphasis on low fat or low protein or high carb, no fat is really just kind of overrated. Let me put it this way. If you eat excess amounts of fat, they are going to be stored on your body as fat, as weight gain. And if you eat excess amounts of carbohydrates, those carbohydrates are going to be converted into fat, and that is also going to be fat stored on your body as weight gain. And if you eat excess amounts of proteins, guess what? They get converted and stored as fat in your body. You can gain weight by eating an excess amount of any of these different macronutrients. That said, I do just want to point out that different foods which contain these different macronutrients all contain different nutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. Things that our body needs in order to survive. And everybody's body has different nutritional needs. So gender, height, how big you are, how active you are, if you're well or if you're sick, all of these different things are going to influence your body's nutritional needs. You can also imagine that the nutritional needs of an Eskimo would be very different than somebody who is living in Central America. So it's important to recognize that there's probably not just one optimal ratio that's going to work for every different person's body. Each person needs to realize that they have their own optimal diet and their own optimal ratio of these different macronutrients. What really determines what a person needs to eat is their body's certain demands. The body needs fats and proteins to build itself, to build the structure of the body. And the body also has energetic needs so that it can move around and perform its basic metabolic functions. These energetic needs can be met by any three of the macronutrients, but mostly carbohydrates and fats are used for this energy in your body. And in a future video, we're going to talk more about an optimal diet and the concept of essential nutrients. Now, essential nutrients are nutrients that your body has to have, but that it can't create itself by breaking down and repatterning into different molecules. So there are essential fats which your body cannot create by itself, and essential amino acids which your body cannot create by itself. So in that future video, we're going to discuss an optimal diet, how you can ensure that you're getting these essential nutrients, and recognizing that all of the other macronutrients are basically interchangeable. And in another video, we're going to dive more deeply into this chart, and we're going to add in some other nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and enzymes, and explain how all of these different nutrients come together to create an optimal diet. So if you haven't yet, be sure to leave me a comment letting me know which of these diets you've tried and if it worked for you. If you haven't yet, I hope that you'll give me a thumbs up and like my video. Share this video with your friends if you found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much for watching. Obesity is becoming a larger and larger problem here in the United States. To find out why, check out my video on the average American diet. If you've been trying to lose weight for ages and you just can't figure out why you can't lose weight, you need to understand why people gain weight. So check out our video. Would you believe that a Snickers bar is actually a better breakfast than a bowl of cereal? To find out more about sugar and what it means for your body, check out my video, The Truth About Carbohydrates. So while some of these extreme diets may actually help you lose weight, chances are you're going to gain it right back. To find out how to lose or gain weight permanently, check out our video.